mention of the name still brings feelings of dread and fear some 300 years after his death. Hi, this is your host, Randy Gregg. We're going to follow along with underwater archaeologists in Beaufort, North Carolina, as they bring up two cannons from the seafloor at Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard's ship that ran aground in Beaufort Inlet. We're also going to talk with conservationists and historians as they talk about some of the techniques they're using to conserve items brought up from the shipwreck. We'll also learn about some of the underwater experimental techniques they're using, such as attaching sacrificial anodes to keep the items from corroding before they're brought up. But first, let's go to the Maritime Museum in Beaufort, North Carolina, where we learn a little bit about the ship and its history. Thank you for watching Raising Blackbeard's Cannons in Beaufort, North Carolina.
Some of the cannons by placing sacrificial anodes to the guns themselves, with the idea that they would deteriorate enough the cannons and they could actually reverse this process that's going on. But since all the cannons are going to be coming up soon, it's been really more of an experimental process than if you're going to leave them out there forever, then yeah, that would be a good idea to really pursue that.
So that's the future, that it will all be coming out?
That's the plan, yeah. About, I guess in 2006 we made the decision that the site was threatened, particularly by major storm events like the hurricanes that keep coming up the coast. And in that shallow inlet environment, the site becomes exposed. It's now resting on a very hard, compact layer of sand, whereas in the past, sand would come out to the inlet and build up these shoals, and it would be buried under maybe 10 or 12 feet of sand. Since they started maintaining the fixed channel back in the 1930s, taking that sand offshore has depleted this ebb tide delta. So you can look at charts from the 1930s to the present, you see it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And now there's no deeper that the wreck can go because of this hard layer of sand that it's on.
How much of the actual hull of the ship have you guys raised, and how much do you have yet to go?
There's not that much of the hull left, maybe about the length of this room and half of this room, and probably 2/3 of that we brought up back in 2000. The rest of it is sitting underneath a mound of anchors and cannons and ballast stones. It will come up when that mound gets moved. Like I say, in 2006, the decision was made to recover everything, which is really unprecedented in underwater archaeology, particularly in North Carolina, because of the huge effort that's involved in storage and conservation once you get this material up. But because of the historical significance of this ship, Queen Anne's Revenge, and its association with Blackbeard, and its threat from the environment, we felt like this one had to come up. So since 2006, we've been putting in a series of grid squares, 5 by 5 foot squares, starting on the south end of the site and literally just sweeping over the entire site, and a little over 50% of the way there now. And it's hindered by the fact that we're finding not only things like cannons and anchors that you can obviously see, but almost microscopic specks of gold dust, fragments and whole glass beads that were trade beads, lead shot by the hundreds of thousands. So we're having to sift through all this sand to find all these small artifacts, because we don't want to leave anything behind. And of course you have to keep up with the exact location of where it came from to keep the context, which is interesting. If you plot out the gold dust, for example, that we found on the squares of where it's come from, you can pretty much trace it right back to this one source where somebody obviously left a bag of gold dust when they abandoned the ship, and it's since scattered out.
And why did they leave a lot of stuff behind? It seems like the cannons and all that would be beneficial if they were moving to another boat.
Well, you had 4 vessels when they came in here, the Queen Anne's Revenge being the largest, the flagship, mounting as many as 40 guns, 3 smaller sloops, and the Queen Anne's Revenge and one of the sloops both ran aground. But they had guns on the other boats, and I think it was because of the environment offshore there, was just too hard to unload those large things. Right. But probably most of the smaller things they could carry, they were able to get off. And there's some speculation, some actually accusations by some of the crew that Blackbeard intentionally grounded the ship with the idea of breaking up this large company of pirates. And whether it's intentional or not, that's what happened.
So basically just the ship ran aground, and then they kind of took what they could and just left the ship. Is that pretty much what
Yeah,
happened?
they all made it safely in the inlet with the 2 remaining vessels. He sent some pirates, including Stede Bonnet, another pirate captain, off to Bath to receive the governor's pardon. And while Bonnet was away, Blackbeard marooned some of the remaining pirates on a nearby island in good pirate fashion, and with a hand-picked crew and all the valuables took off in one of the remaining sloops. And 5-6 months later, he was killed at Ocracoke, so it didn't last much longer than that. But during those months, he was calling North Carolina home.
We didn't quite get it done for this week because we were working on that traveling exhibit, but this works out better because it's easier to take pictures this way. So brass compass, this is a handle from a tool. We're not sure what it is. The patterns on it are geometric. It's made of pewter, although it looks like iron. It's pewter and wood. And it's definitely a handle. It could be to a knife, but we're not sure. The experts don't agree. So this is a utilitarian brass chain, very fine. Whoa, we had a great time putting a number on this last week. I mean, that's a 4-point number on your printing. And we don't know what this goes to. It wasn't found in association with, say, a pocket watch or something like that. But look how fine at this end, look how fine the links are. So we may, sometimes in different years, we have found an item that we realize is part of another that's found in an adjacent archaeological square. So that could happen. But they believe it's not jewelry, but probably something utilitarian.
The other one is I guess a map compass?
Yes, it is called calipers, and actually you're thinking of the dividers and that have the points at the end. This is for measuring the radius, not the radius, the diameter of a cannonball.
Oh, okay.
So it's more with ammunition and shooting. And the guys upstairs can tell you a lot more about the cannons. That's
Okay.
not my area. And this is, I guess, people have made such a fuss about it because it is so ornate. And it is a Baroque style, very 1690s. It's 2 parts of a sword that have come together. This is iron, and then this part is brass. And there's a stylized figure. You can see it better there. It is. It may just be a woman, but the thought is it could be representing Queen Anne, because in Britain in that time period it was really typical to put your monarch on ornamental items, and that was for sure a short sword, a personal weapon.
How does it feel to hold a pirate's dagger? Does it make you think of anything?
I've been in the field for 30 years, so I've held 12,000-year-old projectile points, knives that are this big.
Wow.
And the edge was so sharp that I had to be real careful not to cut myself.
Yeah.
So, it is wonderful. It's exciting. It's like a piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm more matter-of-fact about, my job's to take care of it.
Yeah.
And make sure people can see it. So
Does it feel strange that it might have killed people? Do you ever think about that?
I've processed a lot of weapons
Yeah.
and guns over the time. I think I look at them, more from either an artistic and functional standpoint, and what needs to happen to take care of them.
Yeah.
How can I store them well? How can they be on display effectively? So I don't think too much about that. No.
No.
Is it just like a pump system or air, or how does it work?
We've got a water induction dredge system, large water pump on the stern, feeds water up to the manifold here, where we can run multiples.
So you guys can do more than one area at a time, I guess?
We can do 4, we can run 4 dredges at the same time.
Okay.
two of the 5-inch, which is the larger size that's used to remove the overburden, and then we got two smaller ones, the 3-inch, like the green hose here.
You guys have a filter system up here on deck, or
when we're in areas that we have artifacts and hasn't been explored and documented before, we have the 3-inch that runs up to a gravity sluice and a screen system on the surface. We're not set up for that right now because we're not in areas that we haven't completely excavated.
Right. How long can you guys stay over the top of the site before you have to go back?
Our time on site is pretty much however long we want to stay.
All day.
Yeah, we do all day, leave in the mornings. We usually try and limit it to about 6 hours on the water because we've got prep time, and especially when we're recovering artifacts, we've got a couple hours once we come back to shore, cleaning up dive gear, getting the artifacts situated, documented, stowed on shore, and then taking tanks to get filled and everything else. So once we come back to the dock, we still got another couple hours of work.
And the weather can be calm on the surface, but there can be strong currents underneath.
It can work that way. It can be windy on the surface and a little bit of chop, but still nice on the bottom, and vice versa. Lots of times you get surge on the bottom, especially a day like today, where the winds really aren't that bad. But because of we've had the strong prevailing winds from the southwest for days and days, it's kind of built up the water. It's transferred the wind energy into the water, pushing the waves, and even though even though the winds have turned around and laid down, and it's kind of a nice day, there's still a lot of energy in the water that has to dissipate for it to lay down.
Kind of a delayed after effect.
It is. It's an after effect. Just kind of like if you remember being a little kid in the bathtub and kind of sliding back and forth and getting the bath water surging back and forth, and then you stop, and then the bath water just keeps going. It's the same type of thing. The wind's gotten that water moving, and even though the wind stops and turns around and is blowing another way, it still can take a day or two for it to lay back down.
This is the research vessel from Cape Fear.
Yeah, the RV Dan Moore is from Cape Fear Community College, the Marine Technology Program. They've come up pretty continually over the years to be their primary lifting recovery vessel for the cannons and the anchor that we brought up.
So for the really big stuff, those guys have a giant winch and stuff on there.
Right, they've got the large crane on the side and then the A-frame on the stern that can take up a couple tons. So any real large object recovery, we use that. Smaller stuff, we've got a little davit and a winch on board this vessel.
Because these guns have already been reported. 4 of them have been moved and put in a holding area. 4 of them are still in situ, but they've been documented. There's nothing around them.
Has anyone been hurt on this project?
Nary a soul. And I intend to keep it that way.
Exactly.
Are you guys going to try and get the heavy stuff up first, or is it just kind of as you go in a certain area?
No, we're getting the guns up in this period that have already been recorded, and we were doing it at this time period because the Dan Moore had training evolutions going on, and we were able to get their assistance when they were coming in today. So we predicated this first field period around the availability of Captain Youth and the Dan Moore.
Because they have the big crane on there.
Because they can pick the things up. That's right. Those guns weigh around a ton apiece.
And they weigh anywhere from
1,800 to 2,200 pounds.
Once you get them out of the water, do you take them straight to Greenville to be put back in?
Soak them. Yeah, they go immediately to the lab.
See a holding tank over here. Is that kind of
That's for some of the other stuff that comes up. Obviously, none of the guns will fit in that.
Right.
But we have conservators on board. We wrap them immediately with cloth and then spiral with garden soaker.
okay.
Just turn it on low pressure and it stays wet. And usually by the time the whole evolution is done, it'll be late in the evening. Nobody wants to drive all the way to Greenville. They'll stay wet on the trailer, and drag them up.
Right. Just take them all at one time.
Yeah, that's the romance and the glamour.
doesn't look like 300 years of accretion though.
No.
Yeah. I guess at some point it just kind of stabilizes.
Yeah, well, it depends on if it's buried or not too. These were pretty deep in the sand, so if they're not exposed all that often, they won't get such a heavy layer. But obviously we exposed them in '07 and it kind of encourages more growth.
So if a hurricane uncovers them or something like that, then
They'll probably, grow more. And like I said, that one that came up was just covered and it had ballast stones stuck to it, all kinds of stuff, but it didn't at all look like a cannon. It was just it just looked a big blob of stuff. You couldn't see the trunnions, you couldn't make out the shape of the muzzle, you couldn't see anything.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of expecting to see today was, a big block of,
Yeah, no, these are great, but I think it's again because they were probably buried for most of their life down there.
It's pretty amazing on this one. You can still see the hole falling.
Yeah.
The back part, is the trunnion actually open, or is there just a fuse on the top, fuse hole?
Yeah, there would have been a touch hole somewhere in all of this mess.
Right. So they actually loaded it from the front?
They would load it from the front and then, use the fuse on the back.
Into effect for a long time.
Right, so yeah, this is still a muzzle loader, so.
You said these were 6.5 pounders? 6 pounders, okay. They didn't use metric, so.
No.
And I was talking with someone earlier today. They said that when they left the ship, they took some of the smaller guns with them. How many of the larger guns are down there? 27, 28? Is that what you guys said? Yeah,
we have 27 in total. Some of those are smaller, so they're not all this size. I think they've all been cast iron. I can't remember.
They just left them behind because they're too big to carry.
Yes, so it's funny what we haven't found a lot of personal effects, but then we have we've got a lot of those pewter plates that you would think would be valuable or someone would want to take, but they didn't, and then they left the guns on, which again you would think would be really expensive things to replace, but they didn't.
They were saying maybe some of those things were stashed away and they just grabbed the gold and the gun.
It could have been. Yeah, and the only gold we found has been like gold dust, and that's all the record ever said there was on the ship was gold dust, and that dates back to its history as a slaving vessel, not as piracy.
Back when it was the French.
Right. And it was just a means of currency, and it was literally, we find gold dust, and it's once we get to a black sediment layer on the bottom, we try to collect as much as we can, and we actually pan that for the gold dust.
It's kind of a rich area to find the gold dust. It's amazing that the glassware and pewterware survived. Were there accretions on that as well, or was it just underneath a lot of different sediment or something?
Yeah, the only thing that really forms accretion like this is iron.
And you guys have found, I guess it's 200 and something thousand lead shot.
I don't even know what the number is. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like when they say lead shot, is that like a shotgun shot
a pistol? Yeah.
Okay. But some of them are like little tiny balls.
Yeah.
So they just jam those in there like you'd see in a shotgun or something? Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering why they had so many of those.
They would have it in like a little flask and able to pour.
Oh, I see, okay.
We have what's called bird shot, which is real tiny stuff. So that would actually blow,
so the flask,
shrapnel, frankly, at whoever you were firing at.
The detail on some of the brass stuff is pretty amazing. I saw the calipers for measuring the cannonballs.
Brass is amazing. We love to find brass. That doesn't corrode at all. So we get brass things up like they were thrown down there yesterday. So.
Or if it's actually making it active, then that shows that the anode's not working. So that's where this data is. And the stuff that we've been seeing has been showing that has been working. So this is the first time we've ever done it on a trailer, though. So this is a little bit interesting, but because of the season and our time limit, we have to do it this way. So, and we're also going to start doing this in the lab too, and see and have it hooked up in the lab as it sits there and see how that works as well. So that's something a little different.
So the ones that are already in the water still have the anodes attached to them? Is that?
Yeah, not all of them have anodes. There are some controls that we have down there. They weren't brought up, so but that can actually also tell us if the anodes are working versus the other ones.
The ones that you haven't?
Yes.
We're doing E4 on.
Great, you were diving today, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was one of the ones that brought these up.
So what was the visibility down there? Pretty low?
I usually come back with 2 or 2 lines.
Is that good? Huh?
At best, was clearly about to here.
I did not.
Oh, wow.
So about 18 inches, 2 feet at its best condition, and as it diminished, it was literally hand in front of your face.
Wow.
You were doing things by feel.
I was going to say, you literally have to feel your way around. It's crazy.
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
You guys did a good job today. That's all for today, but be sure to visit the North Carolina Maritime Museum in Beaufort to see the permanent Blackbeard exhibit with thousands of artifacts. Thanks again for watching.